If you hear your name in the woods and no one is there, don't answer it. Not because it's dangerous in the way you think, not because something might run at you from between the trees, but because the moment you answer, it knows you can hear it. And once it knows that, it doesn't stay in the trees. There's a place called Black Ridge Hollow. You won't find signs pointing to it. No maps highlight it. Locals don't recommend it. But if you drive far enough past the last streetlight, past the last mailbox, past the last stretch of paved road, you'll reach a shallow dip in the land where the forest grows thicker than it should. The trees lean inward there, as if they're listening. And if you stand still long enough, you might hear it say your name. It won't sound clear at first. It'll sound like air squeezing between branches. Well, like your mind trying to create words from noise. But if you answer it, even once, it answers back. And what answers back doesn't stay outside. This is what happened to me in Black Ridge Hollow. The cabin sits lower than the surrounding woods. You don't see it until you're nearly on top of it. The trees hide it the way hands might hide something small and fragile, or something they don't want found. My uncle bought it cheap. That should have meant something. He told me it was quiet, peaceful, good for clearing your head. He didn't mention how the air feels heavier once you drive down into the hollow. He didn't mention how your ears adjust to the silence in stages. First, you notice the absence of traffic, then the absence of distant machinery, then the absence of human life entirely. No planes overhead, no dogs barking miles away, no faint echo of highways, just wind. But even the wind behaves differently there. It doesn't rush past. It presses slowly, like breath against glass. The first evening, I stepped out of my truck and just stood there. The forest was thick enough to block most of the sky. Sunlight filtered down in thin pieces. It felt earlier than it was, like time had shifted slightly out of alignment. I carried my bags inside. The cabin was small, one bedroom, a narrow hallway, a kitchen that creaked with every step. The wood inside smelled old but dry. No mold, no rot, nothing outwardly wrong, but the silence inside felt deeper than outside, as if the walls absorbed sound. When I shut the door, the latch clicked louder than expected. And then, nothing, no echo, no bounce of sound off walls, just the click. Swallowed. I called my uncle to let him know I'd arrived. No signal. He'd warned me about that. If anything happens, he'd said before I left town, you drive out, don't wait. Then he added something else, casually, and if you hear someone calling from the trees, don't answer. I asked him why. He stared at me longer than necessary. Just don't. That was it. No explanation. I laughed at the time. I didn't laugh later. The first night didn't bring fear. It brought awareness. When you remove yourself from all background noise, your senses recalibrate. You start noticing your own breathing, the shift of fabric when you move, the faint rhythm of blood in your ears. Around 3 a.m., I woke up, not startled, just aware, as if someone had lightly tapped the inside of my skull. The room was completely dark. No moonlight made it through the trees. I checked my phone. 3:16 a.m. Then I heard it. Soft. Thin. A whisper from beyond the bedroom window. Not loud enough to startle, just enough to make you question whether it existed at all. It stretched across the air like thread. Unclear syllables. I held my breath. It came again. Longer, slightly clearer, but still too indistinct to understand. My first thought was wind. My second thought was that the hollow changes how sound travels. My third thought was that it felt deliberate. The whisper didn't overlap with the wind. It waited for stillness. Then it spoke. 3:17 a.m. Exactly. Then silence. Not gradual silence. Immediate. As if something had flipped a switch. I didn't check outside. I didn't approach the window. I told myself isolation does strange things to perception. Eventually, exhaustion won. But just before I fell asleep, I thought I heard something else, very faint, from deeper in the trees. A second whisper, responding. The second night, I didn't wait to fall asleep. I lay in bed with my eyes open, phone in my hand. Recording app ready? 3:14 a.m. Nothing? 3:15. A soft shift in the trees? 3:16. Silence thick enough to feel in your throat. 3:17. Daniel. Clear, not stretched this time, not blurred. My name spoken carefully. The voice didn't sound old. It didn't sound young. It sounded neutral, like someone repeating a word they just learned. I hit record immediately. The whisper came again. Daniel. Slightly closer. Same pacing. Same tone. No emotion behind it. Just testing the shape of the word. I forced myself not to respond. Not even a whisper. The third time it said my name, it sounded almost correct. Almost like someone standing at the edge of the clearing. I stayed still until it stopped. When the silence returned, I checked the recording. Wind. Only wind. No voice. No distortion. Just air moving through branches. But the waveform showed activity. Spikes. Clear peaks where the whisper should have been. I replayed it with headphones. Nothing. I transferred it to my laptop. Enhanced it. Slowed it down. Filtered background frequencies. That's when I heard something. Not my name. Not clearly, but something layered under the wind. A faint, overlapping murmur. As if two recordings were stacked on top of each other. I increased the gain further. And then I heard it. A second voice. Quieter. Closer to the microphone. Speaking at the exact same time as the whisper outside. Two voices. Perfectly synchronized. One outside. One inside the room. The inside voice was softer. Breathier. Almost against the mic. I replayed it over and over. The inside voice wasn't calling my name. It was repeating something else. I couldn't make it out fully, but one word came through clearly. Listening. The third night, I didn't record. I wanted to know if it required the device. 3:17. Silence. Then, "So Daniel," from the left side of the cabin, not the tree line anymore, closer, near the kitchen window. I got out of bed slowly, walked down the hallway. Every step on the wooden floor sounded too loud. The whisper repeated my name again, but this time, it wasn't alone. A second whisper followed half a second later, also saying my name. Same tone, same pitch, slight delay, like an echo that didn't belong to the room. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the dark window. Nothing visible outside, no movement, no silhouette. Then, Daniel, from behind me, inside the hallway. I turned so fast my shoulder hit the wall. The hallway was empty, but the air felt displaced, like someone had just stepped back out of view. The whisper outside stopped. The one inside didn't. It continued, soft, testing, adjusting, trying different inflections, higher, lower, faster, slower. It was learning how I say my own name. I went back to my room, locked the door, and for the first time since arriving, I considered leaving. But morning came, and in daylight, everything felt manageable again. That's how it works there. Daylight resets your logic, night dismantles it. The journal under the floorboard wasn't long, but it was detailed. The former owner had documented everything: times, weather patterns, moon phases. He tried to find correlations. He noted that the whisper never happened during heavy rain, never during strong wind, only during still air. He wrote, "It prefers silence, it waits for it." Several entries later, his tone shifted. "It doesn't like being ignored." He described a night where the whisper repeated his wife's name, soft at first, then clearer, then in her voice. He wrote that the imitation was incomplete at first, missing small details, wrong cadence. But each night it improved. He wrote, "It listens when we speak. It practices when we sleep." That line stayed with me. The final pages were darker. He stopped sleeping in the bedroom, started sleeping in the living room with lights on. Then he wrote about hearing the voice inside the walls, moving, 3 knocks at a time, traveling from room to room, always stopping near him. The last full entry, it asked me to open the door. No explanation of what door, just that sentence, and the unfinished final line. It answered from inside the page ended there. I searched the cabin more thoroughly after reading that. Checked attic, checked crawl space. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no hidden compartments. But that night, the pattern changed again. 3:17 a.m. No whisper from outside. Instead, a soft exhale near my bedroom door. Not words, just breath. I sat upright immediately, then, "Daniel," directly outside the door. Not muffled, not distant, right there. I stared at the door handle. It didn't move, but the whisper came again. And this time, it sounded exactly like me. Perfect tone, perfect pacing, no distortion. "Daniel," then in my uncle's voice, "open the door." Then in a woman's voice I didn't recognize, "It's okay." The voices rotated, testing different approaches, seeing what would work. I didn't answer, I didn't move. Then came the knocks. 3, soft, on the door, not violent. Measured, 3 knocks. Pause, 3 more. The handle twitched slightly, not turning fully, just testing resistance. Then, from inside my room, behind me. "Don't!" My voice, right next to my ear. I felt the air move against my skin. I turned slowly, nothing visible, but the pressure in the room had shifted, like 2 presences adjusting positions. The whisper at the door stopped. The one inside remained. Soft breathing, near the closet, near the window, near the foot of the bed. It was no longer confined to outside walls. It was mapping the interior, learning the layout,
Daniel.
learning distance. And I realized something then. It never tried to break in. It waited to be invited. The 6th night, it didn't call my name. That's what unsettled me the most. 3:17 came and passed. Nothing. No whisper, no breath, no knock. Just the cabin settling in the dark. I stayed awake anyway, waiting, listening for even the smallest shift. Minutes passed, then an hour. The silence stretched so long it began to feel intentional, like it was withholding something. I must have drifted off without realizing it, because the next thing I remember was standing in the hallway, barefoot, my bedroom door open behind me. I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't remember walking. The front door was open, wide, cold air moving slowly into the cabin. The trees outside were completely still. No wind, no sound, and at the edge of the clearing, between 2 pines, something stood there. Tall, not exaggeratedly tall, just tall enough to be wrong. Its shape wasn't clear. It didn't need to be. It was darker than the space around it, not casting shadow, not reflecting light, just occupying space, still, watching. I don't know how long I stood there, but I became aware of something else. My mouth was open, and I was speaking, softly, repeating a single word. Hello, over and over, quiet,
Hello.
inviting. I don't remember choosing to say it. The figure between the trees didn't move, but the distance between us felt different, shorter. The air behind me shifted, and that's when I understood. It wasn't in front of me, it was behind me, the one at the tree line. Wasn't the one that had been learning my voice. It was the one keeping my attention forward, so I wouldn't notice. The breathing directly behind my neck, close enough to feel. Close enough that when it whispered, it didn't need air to carry the sound. You answered. Not loud, not dramatic, just certain. The figure between the trees tilted slightly. Not its head, its entire upper frame, like it didn't bend in the same places we do. And then, the front door closed, slowly, on its own. I don't remember stepping back, but I was suddenly inside, alone in the hallway, door shut, silence again. When morning came, I packed without thinking. Didn't eat, didn't shower, didn't look back toward the trees. I drove straight out of the hollow, didn't stop until I had signal. I called my uncle, asked him if anyone had ever stayed longer than a week in that cabin. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Most people leave before it gets that far." I asked him what that far meant. He didn't explain. 2 weeks later, the cabin burned down. Electrical fire, they said, but there was no active power running to it. No recent wiring changes. The fire started in the hallway, near the bedroom door. I thought that would be the end of it, until I reviewed the final night's camera footage. I hadn't checked it before leaving. I didn't want to, but curiosity has weight, and eventually it presses hard enough. 3:16 a.m. I'm in bed, still, eyes closed. 3:17. The bedroom door opens. I sit up. But something else moves first. Behind me, on the bed. A shift in the mattress. Clear indentation beside my pillow. Then, as I stand and walk toward the hallway, the indentation rises, slowly, like weightlifting. Frame by frame. You can see the outline, not detailed, not fully formed, but present. And when I reach the front door and open it, the figure between the trees is visible. But that's not what made me stop the footage. It's what appears in the reflection of the dark window beside the door, behind me, inside the cabin, standing upright, watching both me and the thing outside. Two shapes, one outside the trees, one inside the house. And when the inside one leans closer to the back of my head, the outside one tilts in the exact same way, mirrored, perfectly synchronized. The footage ends when the door closes. There's no visible force, no wind, just movement. The final audio spike happens right before the camera cuts. I enhanced it, increased the gain, filtered out everything else. There's only one sentence, spoken in my voice, clear, calm, satisfied. It let me in. And wind slowly fades back in. I haven't been back to Black Ridge Hollow. The land is still there. The trees still stand. People still drive past the last gas station without knowing what sits beyond the pavement. Sometimes late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it again. Not outside, not in the distance, just faint, testing, adjusting, practicing. If you've ever heard your name whispered when no one was around, tell me, what did it sound like? Did it sound familiar? Would you have opened the door? And if you're listening to this alone, in a quiet room, and you think you just heard something behind you, don't answer it, because once it knows you can hear it, it doesn't stay outside.